Promising transformation sequences, madness, and a unique combat system, Dragon Star Varnir was a game that caught my eye a few months ago, and I'm glad kept my interest for when it came out in the West recently. It features plenty of unique systems as promised, such as skill tree capturing that provided a way to make improving your characters more interesting while fighting mid-air, alongside its world full of witches and curses with a story that has a surprising amount of heart. While some things like its enemies weren't quite as interesting as other parts of it, there are enough interesting systems in Varnir both in and out of battle to make you feel like you're balancing your character's sanity while journeying through its world. So with some great ideas and a relatively short campaign, Dragon Star Varnir's uniqueness and an emotive story make it an enjoyable game to play if you're looking for something different. Set in the world of Varniria, Dragon Star Varnir begins by introducing us to Zephy, a young knight working for the Empire that hunts witches, and he starts off the game separated from his comrades and running from a dragon. Things aren't looking too good for Zephy, as he's quickly attacked, and with no one else around, he's left in the forest to die, at least until he's found by two witches who feed him dragon blood in an attempt to save his life. The dragon blood is not only successful in saving him, but also awakens a curse in him, one that gives him the same powers and fate of the very witches he's supposed to be hunting, which creates a moral conflict. This conflict doesn't last long though, as the Empire reject him after learning of his powers, and the witch hunter Zephy becomes the hunted. The story sees Zephy learning about the witches' struggle as he watches them deal with having a curse that sees them either eventually giving birth to a dragon that eats its way out of its womb and kills them if they keep eating dragon meat, or losing their minds if they don't, with him being the only male witch giving him a unique position in the world as he learns more about the curse. With themes of madness and impending death, I was expecting the story of Varnir to go in a darker direction, and while it certainly has its moments, I was surprised with the amount of heart in the story and found myself touched by many of the moments between Zephy and his new team. There's a big theme of trying to make the most of the hand that these witches have been dealt in life by trying to make a simpler life for themselves and the little sister witches they care for, and by the end of the story, I wanted to give them that life too, that gave purpose to going through its dungeons and gameplay portions, probably helped by the fact that its gameplay systems play into this idea as well. The story runs for just the right amount of time to keep this feeling going too, as it's about 25 hours long, so I felt like I never lost that purpose as I was playing. And with the cast of likable characters too, this story was one I was able to really connect with and enjoy. Lately, I've been enjoying games that have story and gameplay meet, so I was pleased to see that Dragon Star Varnir has this too, thanks to some of its systems. A few systems tie in directly with the witch's curse and trying not to go mad through having a madness scale to keep track of. The scale is tipped a few different ways, such as through dialogue choices or having your party wiped out in battle, and usually makes sense as to why they tip the scale, although sometimes dialogue choices that did raise my meter didn't strike me as that crazy and rather more direct or emotional. So if you don't want to throw the madness balance, generally the softer answer is always the safest. If you care about which ending you get, this will be something you want to keep an eye on, as there's supposed to be the option of a despair-inducing madness ending as opposed to the normal and true ones. But luckily, any overly increased madness is usually fixable through reloading saves, so as long as you save regularly, this shouldn't be too much of an issue. The older witches aren't the only ones susceptible to madness though, as you have to keep an eye on the little sisters as well, by feeding them dragon meat to keep their sanity in check. As you go out and explore fields, the sisters get hungry, which can raise their dragon growth gauge, so it's important not to stay out too long, bring the sisters back some dragon meat, and keep an eye on their gauges. How you use the little sisters is up to you, with feeding them raising their satisfaction gauge and having them give you presents. But since feeding them raises their dragon gauge a little too, you don't want to overfeed them, since if you accidentally fill this, the little sister basically dies since she'll become a dragon you have to fight and affects which ending you'll get. So depending on which route you're going for, most of the time it'll be better to keep them madness in check too and not get too greedy with free stuff. I had no real problem with this system, as it's pretty easy to maintain unless I guess you're on a higher difficulty and have to grind or are overfeeding them for gifts. But I like how it made sense story-wise to come home and feed the girls after a dungeon crawl, and was a good way to always keep that witch's curse lingering. The story theme continues into battles, with the witch's ability of flying meaning the battles are airborne across 3 tiers, with these tiers coming in handy when you want to break regions of enemies to stop certain attacks when you're battling big dragons. These witches can also release their dragon power during battle in an awakened form that is unleashed by filling a gauge that increases as you do things in battle, with this form accompanied by the exact kind of transformation sequence you'd expect from a Compal Heart game, which I mean in the nicest way, as I like the cool designs of each of these forms. Visuals aside, the awakened forms are fun to use and do a pretty good job against big boss battles, and I enjoyed using each of them strategically, as aside from their big attacks, they also boost each girl's stats to make them deal more damage in general. And since some enemies required chipping away at big health bars, they were much appreciated as they made these battles much quicker. These transformations, along with the Devour mechanic where you can have your characters eat dragons with a death-like attack to gain a skill tree from them, ended up being what made battles most interesting for me, as opposed to the multi-tiered system, which only really came into play when I was setting how I wanted my characters before battle and when taking down big ones. But with these good parts, along with other things peppered in like weak point rushes and the stronger rogue dragon awakening that increases madness, this battle system full of great ideas was enjoyable to play and strategize with for the most part. Although I did get enjoyment out of combat, the only thing I thought could have been done a little more creatively later in the game was the way enemies get stronger. As you get stronger, you're equipping better skills, getting higher stats, and finding ways to strategize better with the variety of skills at your disposal. But it felt like enemies were just hitting more often, having more bloated health bars, and dealing more damage with nothing that creative. But the most creative thing I saw was one enemy that could copy my characters, and I just wish there were more things like that. Instead, it was mostly a lot of chipping away at health bars with similar strategies throughout, and I ended up switching to easy mode towards the end with the goal of making these repetitive battles a little quicker. I did enjoy the strategy of trying to get my weak point rushes and awakenings happen all at the same time to try to deal higher damage, but ultimately, unlike other games where I look forward to playing hard mode in the future, with the repetitive nature of its enemies, I can't see myself wanting to try it on hard mode anytime soon, which is kind of a shame as the battle system is full of a lot of good ideas. I just wish that the enemies that you're actually using the system on were given that little bit more thought. When it comes to side content and replayability, I enjoyed Varnir's social aspect enough to want to come back to it sometime, especially since it gives you an extra character ending. I ended up giving all my gifts and presents to Karikaro to try get to know her, and thought getting to know her personality was interesting, and if her story is anything to go off, it seems there's some good character development and sweet moments between each girl with Zephy that I wouldn't mind seeing more of. Aside from social aspects, other replayability can be found in its post-game content after the true ending, some endgame lore, and other difficulty modes that I probably won't try, New Game Plus, and collecting all of its dragon cores and elixirs to try get the best character builds possible. Of all these things, I'd probably be most interested in the story-based stuff like the post-game, as although Varnir has good gameplay ideas, I do think the story is a bigger strength, and wouldn't mind seeing more of that in future, and looking at some of the endgame lore has already given me some interesting background into its well thought out world that fleshed it out pretty well. As an RPG that promised a lot of unique mechanics, Dragon Star Varnir does succeed in more than a few ways. Its systems for transformation and getting skill trees ended up being the most interesting to me, and although other systems weren't as deep as I expected, everything still comes together to make an interesting game, especially when combined with its other gameplay mechanics. What really surprised me most though was how much I liked its characters and story, and I think Varnir has an interesting world which took advantage of the dragon and madness theme well to make a world worth playing if you think the story premise looks interesting. So although it wasn't exactly what I expected, Dragon Star Varnir is still another good and unique entry from Compal Heart and Idea Factory, and as I said about their last game, I hope they continue to refine some of these ideas, particularly their enemies, to bring these kind of unique and interesting mechanics to more of their games in future, as there are a lot of good ideas here that aren't quite perfect now, but are already still more than enjoyable. Thank you for watching this video. Let me know in the comments below if you'll try Dragon Star Varnir, and if you already have, what did you think of it? You can like and share this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe to my channel for more JRPG content like this, and ring that bell to get notifications on whenever I post so you don't miss a thing. You can check out more videos here, and you can find me on social media on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, all at JRPG Jungle. Links to those will be in the description below, along with links to where you can pick up Dragon Star Varnir. Until next time, thank you, bye!